look lonely. I can fix that.
Because my soldiers do not buckle or yield when faced with the cruelty of this world. My soldiers push forward. My soldiers scream out. My soldiers rage!
I shouldn't be surprised, since you indoctrinated Robin into crime fighting at the ripe old age of 9.
Robin needed to help bring the men who murdered his family to justice.
So he could turn out like you?
So that he wouldn't.
Stupid bitch. You stupid fucking bitch.
Why did you make me do this? You're fighting so you can watch everyone around you die. Think, Mark. You'll outlast every fragile, insignificant being on this planet. What will you have after 500 years?
I still have you.
Everything's connected. Every one. And this is how he sees things all the time. Every day. It's a cruel joke. The mechanistic clockwork of reality hinging on a precious, impossible defiance of entropy, on life. And the clockwork doesn't care. It's like it's all just us in here together.
Can't ignore it. I'm ready to break down the door, settle the score. Can't let you go away. I miss a smile on your face. Go to la 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 the chase. You told me once that I was crazy. I said, baby girl, I know, but I can't let you go away. So don't you get me started now.
New card. What do you think?
Oh, very nice. Look at that.
Look at that subtle off-white coloring. The tasteful thickness of it. Oh my god. It even has a watermark.
Something wrong?
Hell yeah! Hey, come on, baby! Come on! Yes! Come on!
Alrighty. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of the Noble Comics Show. Today, we're going to be talking about comic book crowdfunding, whether or not it achieved what it wanted to achieve. Is it dead? Was it a bubble? Specifically, I want to talk about the Comics Gate movement and the Rippaverse comics, if you're familiar with those two, and sort of where we go from there. It's going to be a good show. Try and keep it short as well. So let's get right into it. Has comic book crowdfunding taken off, or was it a bubble? And what I'm going to be basing this on is there are two websites. There's one that tracks Comicsgate funds called CG Tracker, and that tracks all Comicsgate campaigns year over year and shows, amount of dollars, amount of backers, top performing books, all that stuff. And then the Rippaverse, which is Eric July's company, Comic Book Tracker as well, doing the same thing. And if you look at those two, it's pretty clear that 2018 for Comicsgate was peak years. Literally every single year from then has gone down in the amount of money raised. It's gone down in average backers. You look at books from like 2019, for example, and they're getting way more people making way more money than books today. It's like tremendously shrunk since then. Same thing for the Rippaverse, who is more new than the older CG stuff. But the same thing. His initial books were huge, like literally the biggest comic book crowdfunded books ever. And nowadays they are not making very much money at all. And he's doing like action figures right now, and they're doing very poorly as well. So either the market is not in the same place as it was back then, the audience has left, something has changed to where now the amount of money coming in for crowdfunding is greatly diminished. Now, it's still there. Plenty of big companies are moving towards crowdfunding for special projects and special books, like Sean Gordon Murphy doing his artist version of Tokyo Ghost, and a few things like that are coming to crowdfunding currently, and they're probably going to make pretty good money. Jimmy Palmiotti's been doing Lady Death stuff forever, so there's certainly money here, but the market is not where it used to be, and it's just not as viable now, I don't think, as it once was. Promoting is harder than ever. Just actually getting traction on your post is harder. Getting people to promote you is harder, as well as just stuff like, we've had late books from lots of creators, quality issues from lots of creators. I mean, there's stuff that I backed back in 2018 that I still have not received yet. 7 years late books that I bought and paid money for that I don't have. And half of the books that I have bought from crowdfunding, and I've done a lot, aren't even that good. And so the quality issue, the lateness issue has definitely gone down. The value proposition is not there. And that's the biggest part that a lot of creators still don't get today is that back in 2017, it was like 48 pages of story for 25 bucks was the norm. But the background to that was like, this is a consumer movement. We've got the highest quality ever. It's direct to consumer, and we're fighting back against the big two, Marvel and DC. We're fighting back against woke culture, all that stuff. So you're paying a premium, but you're getting a premium product. And like I said, a lot of the products weren't premium. A lot of them kind of sucked. But two, nowadays it's like $25 for 48 pages. It's kind of a ripoff, man. The value proposition is just not there. You need like at least 60 plus pages. Preferably, I want it square bound, but if I have enough pages, it doesn't have to be. And that mindset of like, well, they'll pay for anything. I can put whatever price tag I want, they'll pay for it, is not panning out for a lot of these big creators who probably thought they were invincible up until now. And so I think that is also one large part of the decline is the fact that it's just not worth it. The books aren't good enough to warrant the price tag. And that's not to say they're bad. Like Ethan Van Sciver is the biggest crowdfunder around. He's the biggest promoter for crowdfunding, though the scope of that has definitely shrunk in. He's only really promoting a few select people, and they're making pretty good money. But even Ethan, whose art is really good, I'm not paying 25 bucks for like a 48-page Cyberfrog book. I'm just not going to do it. It's not worth it. It's not good enough. So that as a whole, all of that has really, I think, shrunk the industry down to where it's a fraction of what it once was. But the other part of that, of course, is we're talking specifically about Comicsgate crowdfunding. It was not only about making money, which they're not doing as much anymore, it was also about fighting back against woke culture. And so, did they achieve that? Did they achieve what they set out to achieve? And not really. Kind of. I mean, whenever they first started, the industry definitely took notice. I mean, they were making a lot of money. They were kind of showing people the way of like, hey, crowdfunding is a viable option en masse because there are always people who would do it and make money. But like, this is actually a way that we can do things en masse with lots of different creators selling lots of different books and making a lot of money directly. So they definitely did that and achieved that, but did they really counteract the woke culture of Marvel and DC? Not really. I mean, today, I think we're in sort of the post woke world where that tagline and sort of that mentality has definitely died off. I feel like that was a pretty good reactionary stance to like Trump's presidency in 2016 of like, Trump's here, so we have to overcorrect to be even more, to the left or whatever. And that's where you got a lot of like the Jane Foster Thor and Miles Morales Spider-Man and Miss Marvel and a lot of the character swaps of like traditional straight white male characters being swapped into some other diversity category. And the writing was very cringe. I mean, it was very like on the nose politically left. And Comicsgate was like a post against that. But I don't think they really made a big difference because on the whole, most people were kind of against the over politicization of everything. And we're sort of past that now to where nobody really buys into the whole woke thing. And being anti woke can be like just as cringe. So I feel like we're sort of in the post woke society. And that's evident enough by like if you go to a comic book store and look at the shelves, a lot of the books on the shelf are actually good and they're just like normal, good comic books. I've been buying comics like my whole life, and I am buying more like issue to issue comics now than I ever have before because there's just a lot of stuff on the shelf that's actually good. Like, there's not a bunch of headlining super like woke books like there were a few years ago. Now it's mostly just good stuff that's cool and sells well. So I think that aspect of it's kind of dead. And Ethan's talked about that before, Ethan Van Sciver, who's sort of the head of the Comicsgate movement. It didn't start out that way necessarily, but it's definitely become that now. I think he and Comicsgate are sort of interchangeable. It's sort of his group now. And he's been confronted before on the fact that sales are declining just across the board. His books aren't doing as well. The people that he platforms aren't doing as well. Used to, if Ethan had you on his show and promoted your book, you were like immediately making five figures, if not six figures. You're making a lot of money just from his word of mouth, but it's really not the same today. And he's talked about that before. And he said, well, Comicsgate was always just meant to be a home for blacklisted creators. And so if the movement is not growing, well, that just means that no more creators are being blacklisted. So that's a good thing. So why would I want the industry of Comicsgate to grow? That would mean that more creators are being blacklisted. So it's actually a good thing that we're not growing. And I think that's probably a cope, right? I think he probably sees the numbers are not as good and is just rationalizing it as best as he can. Because again, average backer count is way down from where it was a few years ago. Average dollar amount is down from where it was a few years ago. He's still obviously making a lot of money. It's not like he's going to go broke or anything, but the audience has shrunk. I think considerably. It's shrunk, and now you have sort of a core, probably 2,000 people who are like core backers, and that he can rely on. But that only lasts, I think, a certain amount of time because you have things like late books that are hurting him as much as a lot of people try and write that off as being insignificant. I think that is significant. If you have books that are 4 or 5 years late that people paid a lot of money for, that rubs people the wrong way. Even if they're bought in like mentally to the whole fighting back against Marvel and DC type of thing, it doesn't feel good to spend 25 bucks minimum up to like 50 plus dollars for a book and then 5 years later it still hasn't shown up. And it's not to say that Ethan or Comicsgate people are the only ones who have done that. I think like Rob Liefeld has like 13-year-old campaigns from Kickstarter years back that he's never fulfilled. So it's not an isolated issue. But again, on the whole, that's tying into the fact that the industry is shrinking. So the idea here that we've like one defeated wokeness or that we've platformed silenced creators, I think all of that isn't totally true. Like even Ethan from the beginning said, I was kicked out essentially of DC for my pro Trump stance. And so, I was moved out and therefore I started Comicsgate to combat that. And it's like, well, he left willingly. I think people were playing, like the Mean Girls high school stuff where they're talking bad about each other and being like, well, if you work with him, then I won't work with you, that type of stuff, which is definitely bad. There's definitely a legitimate complaint there. But you look at everybody else surrounding him, and it's like, did all of them go through the same thing, really? Or were they just pros on the more conservative side who see an opportunity to make a lot of money potentially? And for Comicsgate in particular, that is shrinking, I think that's sort of a core issue that he's running into is like, what's the real definition of the movement and what we're getting into? Because from the beginning, and I was there at the beginning, I thought my understanding was that it's like, sure, these blacklisted creators, but also it's a voice for the independent creators. It's for the small guys. We can get our voices out there. It's a resurgence of independent comics. And so, no name whoever who never even got a shot at Marvel and DC, he can come up as well and he can get out there and put his own book out there right next to everybody else and, be a part of the movement. And as time has gone on, it's become clear that that's not the case. It's like, no, no, no. Small creator, you are not part of the movement. You are funding the movement. You buy the books, you don't make the books. We're not going to platform you. And there is sort of like this, not even like a two-sided coin. It's sort of like a rules for you and not for me type of thing, where it's like, you small creator, you're part of the movement just like I am. I'm not me, Ethan Van Sciver, I'm not the arbiter of what is and isn't Comicsgate. I'm not the leader of Comicsgate. If you want to make your own book, go build your own platform, hire your own people, get your own name out there and make your own book, and you're just as part of it as anybody else, even though I'm not necessarily going to platform you. But on the other side, with Ethan, it's like these people have slighted me or they've gone against me or I helped fund them and then they stab me in the back. Therefore, it's like you're cut off. You're no longer Comicsgate. You're out of the movement. See you later. And so it's kind of like, well, you know, do you get to decide who is his Comicsgate or don't you? And I don't really have a problem with Ethan. I mean, I used to watch his show all the time. I don't watch it as much now, but I don't watch really anything as much now. So I don't really have a problem with him specifically. I'm just bringing him up here because I think he does represent the whole Comicsgate movement, and that's important to iron out is whether or not he is Comicsgate. Because what he says is that he's not. He's not the leader of Comicsgate. He's just the biggest voice. And so, again, if you're a smaller creator, you can be part of it, but he's not necessarily going to platform you um, because he's just one voice among other voices. You need to go and make your own platforms. But whenever somebody does make their own platform and they're not cool with Ethan, usually those people get attacked or they get shouted down, or they are now a different group. They're a Dungeoneer. They're an anti-Comicsgate. There's something else because they're anti-Ethan, which I think seems to indicate that Ethan is interchangeable with Comicsgate. Which, if he is, and I think he should just say that he is, because if he is, I think that solves a lot of problems. Because I think that these problems with like defining CG and what it is and what it isn't, a lot of that comes from frustration of smaller creators. It comes from frustration of people that want to be on Ethan's show more or whatever. And if Ethan would just say, "Yeah, I am Comicsgate. It is my movement," then he would just have the control that he already has, and he could just be more transparent with it and be like, "Look, it's my show. It's my YouTube channel. I'll have whoever I want on my YouTube channel. If I don't want you on the show, I'm just not going to have you on the show." And so if he picks fight with somebody, it's like that's fine. Ethan's allowed to go and pick a fight with somebody or be at odds with Eric July or whoever else, that's fine. If he wants to not have, this guy on his show and he just wants to have his 10 friends on the show and he and his 10 friends all sell their books and all make six figures, whatever, that's fine. The issue is when you try and frame Comicsgate instead as like this vast, nebulous, indefinable movement of people. And it's like, well, I'm just one part of it. It's like, well, are you? Because you really are the make or break. Like if Ethan promotes you, you're gonna make money. If he doesn't promote you, you're probably not gonna make as much money. And so I think he needs to kind of quit kidding himself and just kind of own up to the fact that it is his movement. It is his audience. No one who's like a Comicsgate person is going to back a book that Ethan doesn't like. They are going to back the books he does like. They are Ethan's fans and they have the title of Comicsgate. They're not Comicsgate fans who like also happen to like Ethan. They're one and the same. And so I think defining that better would help everybody. And then that also ties into promotion because Ethan is definitely was the biggest promoter of independent comics. Specifically for Comicsgate books, it was like if Ethan shouted you out again, you're instantly making 10 grand. You might make a whole lot more than that. And, if he chooses to ignore you, you're going to be ignored and probably not many people are going to see it. And it was all free. If he chose to platform you or not, which again, if it's just his channel, that's fine. If it's a wider movement, that can become a problem because he is literally the keeper of the gate. He's gatekeeping who is allowed in, who's allowed to make money, and who's not. And so when it comes to promotion, again, it's all free. But there's sort of like it's sort of like when a mobster does you a favor. Tony Soprano does you a favor. It's kind of like it was free, but I'm kind of expecting some sort of loyalty in the future. And you saw that a lot whenever Ethan has been in many spats with people. It usually comes down to something like, I platformed you, I promoted your book and made you money, and you have done something to disrespect me, or you've said some comment about me, and therefore now we're at odds, and like I'm gonna destroy you or whatever it is. When it's like nobody's got time for that. Most of these creators are not full-time creators. Most people making books, it's like I got a day job, I've got a wife and a family, I've got other stuff taking up my time. And so yeah, I just want you to promote my book because I just want to make money. Like, can we just be honest about that? And they'll say something, I noticed this a lot, a line that kept popping up was that people would say, "These guys only come around when they need promotion. Then they disappear to work on their book, and then whenever they need to promote another book, they come back around." And that's framed as like a, some sort of injustice or unfavorable thing when it's like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's what anybody would do. I'm a guy who makes comic books. I only come to the comic book promoter when I need my book promoted. That makes pretty good sense. But it's tied into like a weird loyalty thing where it's like, if I promoted your book, you need to have some loyalty to me. You need to show up in my live streams. You need to be promoting my books too. You need to be promoting everybody who I promote. You need to be like deep in the movement, active, and they'll say like carry an oar so you can row your own ship or whatever. And it's like, again, I've got a day job. I've got other stuff that takes up my time. I don't have time to sit on Twitter or YouTube all day, sitting in people's streams and retweeting campaigns and stuff. It's like, can I not just have you promote me? And I think a missed opportunity was instead of doing it for free, which creates all this weird like expectation of future repayment of that by promoting and stuff. It's like, what can I just pay you? Why can I just say, hey, you'll get X% of my campaign total, or I'll just pay you a flat rate, and then you just shout out my books this many times over this time period. And as you do that, then the transaction's over. I paid you for a transaction, you perform the service, now it's over. And there's not this weird expectation of future loyalty that leads inevitably to these problems. I mean, it's inevitable. You're never going to do enough to appease the person in power or something like that to any degree. And at some point, they're going to do something you don't like. And if you speak out against it, well, then now you're blacklisted. Now you're not loyal. Now you've crossed some line and you're no longer going to be promoted. When it didn't need to be that way. We didn't need to create a weird, I don't want to call it a cult because I think that's one kind of an overused thing. And I don't think it's what it is. But it's definitely a system that rewards, kind of sticking to the group, right, and promoting the group. And Ethan's found his people that do that. He literally calls them the Comicsgate Kings, and good for him. Glad that he has his group of people, and good for them too. And all their campaigns make a pretty good amount of money. But I feel like we've gone through years of difficulty and people getting slighted and people getting treated poorly or perceived as being, backstabbed or whatever, when we could have just avoided all that by being more transparent of one, what Comicsgate is, what are its goals, and, you know, who Ethan is as far as portraying the movement and who he wants to platform and who he doesn't want to platform. And so as a whole, on that, I think the movement is definitely on the downswing. Again, all the numbers seem to pan out and kind of what I talked about. I think are reasons why it became too personal, and it wasn't portrayed that way at the beginning. It's a timing issue of like not getting the books on time, quality issues, value proposition's not there. And I think the stance of the movement from the beginning is kind of over because again, I think we are in sort of the post woke world. um, Comic books are pretty good now. Like you go to your store, they don't have, Lady Thor like beating up a man anymore and being like, this is for feminism or whatever. It's pretty normal stuff now. So I don't know. I feel like it's kind of, if you want to say it's done its job, sure. I don't think it's necessarily responsible for it, but it's kind of over. Um, that said, as far as crowdfunding goes, if you're a smaller creator, you don't really have any other option. So you're really in a tough spot because the time to crowdfund was 7 years ago. It's not now. And if you're a small creator, your only option is to crowdfund. Marvel and DC aren't going to write you a check. It's very hard to get in with like even like Dark Horse or Image or whatever. It's very difficult. So your only option is to try and crowdfund to people you know. Trying to get into a movement is probably not going to work out. And so you do have to do it yourself. And so a tip would be avoid crowdfunding in the traditional term of like, I'm using funds to make my book, and try and just sell a finished product. Because I feel like a lot of people have lost trust the fact that you, some first time creator, are going to, efficiently allocate funds that we're giving you to make a book. It's much easier just have the book done out of pocket and then either crowdfund or just sell directly from a website is way easier to do that. And so, despite everything that I've just said, I do want to highlight some different campaigns here. Let's see if I can pull it up. So the first one, let's see if I can share my screen. We'll do share my window here. Verify that I'm a human. And so the first one I want to point out here is Hotel Story 2. So this is by Per Berg, who's done a ton of great stuff. If you have read any of his books, you know his writing style is very good. His quality is very high. One of the best independent comic writers today, for sure. The art here is sort of a cartoony sort of style. It's very good. Fits his writing style perfectly. This is also a very big book. I think it's 120 pages. And if you've, again, back to stuff before, he always delivers on time. It's very high quality. And again, it's probably the best quality stuff you can get for the amount you're getting and for the price. So great value proposition here. Very high quality, never late. Definitely want to check his out. And then also, let me see here. Go to noblecomics.store. So also, if you go to my website, noblecomics.store, you can see my books here as well. Displacer Bad Influence is my most recent one. This was printed in June, which means that they are here. I usually have one right next to me, and I do have one. They are printed. They are ready to go. Get yours today. It is a detective sort of supernatural story. I like to think of it occupying the same space as like the X Files, where it's not totally just normal, but it's not too supernatural or too sci-fi or anything as well. But um, it's a great book too. Be sure to check it out. And any other books that I have here are under the comic store too, so you can see those as well. And I think that will do it for today.